There's been a lot of rhetoric around how teachers need to engage students. But what about leaders who need to engage teachers or workshop facilitators who need to actually engage adults? So for this session, we're going to talk reciprocal teaching. Now, reciprocal teaching is something that we use for literacy practices, and we can actually use it for just about any content area. But I found that it's been really interesting to be able to use for workshops, facilitating workshops. What it usually starts with, so if we're a school leader, is it starts with a meeting. What is something we want to be able to focus on in our faculty meetings? Or if you're a PLC lead, what do you want to focus on in PLCs? Many times it's around student engagement and instructional strategies. So let's use the example of using reciprocal teaching around reciprocal teaching. Sounds like a good idea. So step one would be that, which would be creating a goal around an instructional strategy, and you choose reciprocal teaching. Step two is you actually find an article or a blog around that topic, and you send it out to the participants, staff, or teachers in the PLC before the meeting, about 3 days, so they can read it, digest the information, get a little bit of an understanding, build that self-efficacy. Step three is that when we're at the meeting, whether we're in person or remote, I've used it for both. What happens is you give each person, you put them in groups of 4, and you give each person a role, just like reciprocal teaching asks for. The next step is then you give them the opportunity to actually discuss the article that you sent them a couple of days before the meeting, and each person takes on that role. And they be able to, I would say, they need about 15 minutes to be able to discuss it from their different vantage points. After that, after the 15 minutes is up, they come back to the larger meeting, whether, once again, in person or remote. And as a larger group, you discuss what it is that you talked about in your smaller groups. Is reciprocal teaching something worthwhile? Is it something that you would use in a classroom, or do you already use it, and how does it work when you're with your students? The next step, if you happen to be a part of a PLC or this happens to be a discussion at a faculty meeting, is that you give people until the next meeting to try reciprocal teaching in the classroom to be able to talk about what was that like. And then what you do is you come back at the next faculty meeting, next PLC, and you discuss it. I find that too often we talk at the adults about how they need to use different strategies to engage students, but we don't use those same strategies in our meetings, which means that we're hypocritical, and we need to stop doing that. So using something like reciprocal teaching, whether you're in person or remote, is a really great way to actually get the active engagement, get a discussion going around learning, which is exactly what our meetings should be about. And it gives us the opportunity to talk about whether it's going to work or why it might not work in a classroom. And it also develops a common language and a common understanding, something we as leaders need to know more about when we're going in to do those things like learning walks. If we can develop that language together by jumping in activities like using reciprocal teaching, it's a really perfect way to get that common language and common understanding, and that's going to have a positive impact on school climate. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to make a comment, please do. I love seeing the comments. And if you'd like to consider following this video or the other videos that I'm doing on my YouTube channel, please feel free to do that as well. And if you have suggestions of what you'd like me to cover, I'm also very open to that too, because I'd like to hear what people are thinking about. Thank you for your time.